You learned how to be careful. You didn't learn how to evolve. There's a difference, you know. You learned how to be afraid and to learn how to deal with the fear, but instead you were teaching him something, and there it is.
When you deal with aggression, you learn how to deal with it. You don't learn how to evolve. Rick, good morning. Welcome to the Leader's Furnace.
Good morning, Eddie.
We have been working through all of the illusions. That's why we call it the furnace. What gets burned up in the furnace or gets formed in the furnace, or what the furnace ends up giving back to us as we stay in the work. But it's first a huge work of awareness of going, hey, what are the illusions? What are the lies that we're believing? What are the hidden agreements that we are entering into all the time with people? And today we'll cover some more. One of the things that you said in last episode was how you have always created a marker. You'll set a goal to maybe buy a car, and the car is not just the acquisition of a car, it's the accomplishment of a goal. You'll hit a marker. And so just, for the people watching and curious, what have those markers look like for you? The cars in your shop tell a story. What story do those cars? What are those cars? Just because might have some car people listening, but also what story do each one of those cars tell?
Well, there's a bit of an illusion when people show up and they see there's 8, 10, 12, 15 of those sitting in there. They see it as success, but they don't know what it took to get all of those. Because since I'm 64 years old now, I've acquired something like that as a celebration every 3, 4, 5 years. So since I'm old as shit, I have a lot of stuff. Okay, but the I had dreamed about something. I think it's important to, when you do the work and you serve and you get out there and you get at it, you have to have something that is they're like gifts to myself. It's a celebration moment. It's like and usually I like things that require a long period of longing. The goals that I can get in a week or two are just they're not big goals, they're small goals, but that a longing period is important. Like right now, I want a 70 Chevelle. Do I need one? No. Do I want one? Yes. Is it being really difficult to get? There's a rites of passage happening. We're on car number 50 right now. I haven't bought one yet, but we're learning how to buy the car. The first 20 cars, America is full of people that right now they're car thieves, for lack of a better word. What they do is they offer it for sale at a cheap price, then you wire the money, and they steal your money and disappear. And that's amazing. We had to go through all of that. I'm like, wow, it was so disenchanting because all the cars with good prices were with people that had it, but they were waiting for you to wire money to them, and then they would kind of disappear because we had to use some EQPQ or some awareness. So when we found out the car was worth X, we would then basically Google Earth it, and then we would find out their showroom and the building they're in looked different. And then we asked them to basically go do a phone video with the car, and they never call back. So that was disenchanting. And then plus, I'm a bit of a justice person. I don't like these people out there. Here they are. They're just going to get away with this. They're going to go and hurt another bunch of people. They didn't hurt me because I was smart enough not to get hurt. But so that's the rites of passage to get this next thing that I have on my mind. And then I found out that the budget price that I had negotiated with my wife, which is the scariest part of all, was it's going to be outside that budget. Now, if she listens to this video, now she'll know I'm about to approach her for about $20,000 more. At least I got a head start there. So, because the car, what I thought was going to be X is $20,000 more to buy. But you see, this is all. So you asked a question about what does it take to get one of those cars or toys or fun things. They're complicated. You got to be very patient. Before we started our meeting today, we were talking about this 29 Ford. Is like the brutal price to pay to be able to last Monday after 2 years drive it. So with that, I have these markers all the time as this fun thing, and then I'm not even bothered by the 70 Chevelle. And notice the 29 Ford, I needed to whine a little bit, but I think it's fine. It's just another 200 hours of cheap car that's no longer cheap because I got 200 hours in it. So the car that was half price now is full price. But it's part of the journey. So I set aside that, got back to my joy. Monday, Tuesday, and I drove Monday and Tuesday. It was just incredible. So thankful. But there's a price to pay. So when you do this stuff, I think that back to your original question, you have to set a marker, and you have to realize when you want to go get it, it won't be as simple as just, hey, bingo, I got it. It's going to be, you're going to get it. There's going to be something wrong with it. There's going to be a bunch of work to do to it, but you need that because all I do is take that cycle, and once the Chevelle happens, I'll be in a year like, I want a Stanley Steam car. That's kind of after the Chevelle. I got my eye on a Stanley Steam car. Okay, but that Stanley Steam car is a different ball game. But there it is, because I'm not really hung up. It's not that material possession that's going to change my life. I just long for it, and I realize things will change. It's fun to climb the hill.
What are the markers of celebration? Is it usually a financial revenue for your company? Is it something that's happening in your team? Like, what are you usually celebrating when you?
You know, I'm not the financial markers don't do too much for me. The visual, you know, with me being my personality style, the visual marker tied to the longing and the emotion is what I like. I don't get much of that from money or finance, you know. Now I know I need that to be in order to buy the car, okay, but I don't dwell on that because it just doesn't feel the same as the car or the trying to get the car, you know. But those are all important. I mean, we have metrics for everything. You know, we have sales metrics, and then we have margin metrics and you know, overhead metrics and all that. But those aren't as engaging. Now, some people like those, but for me, I do those to get over here, but they're not number one to me. They're number 10 to me. Yeah.
That's great. As we're continuing to go through your story, right? Just seeing how you engage with your story, right? The idea of longing. I went home after last time that we met, and put on paper a way I would celebrate a marker in our business, and talked to my wife about it, and she's like, "Yep." She goes, "That's great. Let's do it." She goes, "When you cross this threshold, then we'll buy this truck," you know? Yes. And I was like, all right, that sounds great. Now we're together aligned on a common goal and a common way of celebrating it. You know, I'd love to ask for an extra 20,000 at the end of that process, you know?
Yeah, take me,
it's a different truck.
You're not 64 years old. You take time with it there. Okay.
That's right. That's right. No, I'd love to. It doesn't mean I am gonna. And so as we go through the process, Think and Grow Rich talks so much about that, of saying, hey, go ahead and write down the goals. You know, you can't actually go after something that you haven't articulated or put down on paper, which is what ends up happening when we talk to, you know, we'll talk to college kids, we'll talk to people that are young and coming into the workforce, and they're full of excitement and joy, but you're like, hey, what are the goals? What are the dreams? What do you want to accomplish? And either they're playing it really small and the dreams are really little, or they have never even put them on paper. And so usually we're talking about intangible goals that are, they don't know if they've met their goals or not, you know, even if they're working really hard, because it's really important that people have written down goals of like, hey, what do I want to accomplish in the next, what's inevitable in the next 3, 5, 10 years as we do that, right? One of the illusions is we can go at it without goals.
Yeah, I don't see how you can do that because the pain will come. You'll start climbing the hill. If you're climbing a hill, you know, we talk about kind of the throttle and the elevation of the hill. So as we talk about that, you know, this would be called a goal of upward mobility, but you can barely see the upward mobility. This is what comfortable people do. Well, I'm not really into that. I'm into these. Okay, and they're going to be hard. They're going to be tough. So I got to have to have tools that will sustain me during the climb. You know, so when I'm climbing this and it's painful, or I fall down a little bit and got to reset, or I have some reversals, or people are crying and whining because we're going up a steep hill, which is usually the thing that happens, because most people, they want to do this hill. Well, we don't do that hill, we do this, so we got one life to live here. So we're going to be heavy on this throttle or heavy on this incline. But by having that, knowing that the 70 Chevelle's out there, it's just kind of fun. And a lot of people would say, well, that's a material possession thing. They would start judging it. These are all just elements of things. That makes sense. We're doing a Toys for Todd event this weekend. So for some people, they would say, well, it's all about the car, and you're a materialist, and you're a this, that, and the other. So hang on. Appreciate your feedback on your judgment on who I am. But we balance all these things out. We're going to be giving our whole Saturday, and there's 3 days of approach to go do this Toys and Tots event with all kinds of gear and equipment. We're taking a train, cars, tractors. You know, we're going to be bringing the gear because we possess the gear. And we're going to share that with some of these children that, for foster homes and some challenging backgrounds and all that stuff. So that car's exciting, and doing this thing for the community is exciting. But some people want to go, oh my God, I'm not a materialist. I don't really think about material things. It's like, well, you think about your bank account. That's a material thing too. Or you think about being overly social because your flag is I'm overly social. I'm really friendly. Well, that's okay. All these things, you're just picking overly friendly and being nice compared to a Chevelle or Toys for Tots. It's just a choice, But I just don't like the idea of being a materialist. With my Enneagram 6ness, it has had a lot of bad experiences with people, so I'm not that close to people. I'm guarded. You are different. You're very close. I mean, you're very connected with people, and the relationships are just really valuable to you. That's a different thing from me. I have introverted kind of goals. I don't have community goals. When I go to Toys for Tots this weekend, I'll be sweating the whole time. It'll be stressful because there's so many people there and so much things happening. That makes sense?
The connected people are trying to draw you out,
Oh, they're drawing me out, all right. But there it is. I have to Sabbath into that. I have to be present to that and say, Lord, here we are. We're just going to be connective and nurturing today. That makes sense?
Well, as a foster dad, I appreciate what you guys are doing this weekend. It's great. Thank you.
We're very excited. And make a difference.
I know Joseph's a foster, adoptive kind of dad as well. So, we're just thankful for that, what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah. Rick, I was thinking about coming into this space, and I thought whether it's a PMI employee or part of the community or a grandchild watching this, a couple of years from now, we had a conversation a couple of years ago, and we call them the 6 laws. And as we went through the 6 laws, it led to a very rich conversation. As a matter of fact, when we were going through these six laws, we came up with the idea of the illusions of leadership, which ended up being the leader's furnace and where the illusions get burned off, right? And so as we went through the 6 laws, you were just able to unpack what it looked like for you, and you were able to talk through, very honestly, kind of the laws, and all the 6 laws are essentially in pairs. And the laws are kind of like gravity. You either gravitate towards one or you gravitate towards the other at any given moment in time, right? So we'll start with the first 2 laws, and we'll just kind of volley back and forth. And we can in some ways recreate that conversation, but we're a couple of years down the line. And so Lord's been at work in our lives through that time. And we just have a little bit more awareness than before, right, as well. Yeah. So the first 2 laws are shame versus pride. Essentially, shame says, what's wrong with me, right? Versus pride says, what's wrong with everybody else? Shame and pride are really this, do I come into a room and based on my self-preservation or fear, do I puff up, so pride, or do I shrink, which is shame, right? And now, as we look at shame, one of the things that I want to make a distinction on is that shame, when we shrink, is there's a difference between shame and guilt. Guilt says I did something wrong versus shame says something is wrong with me because of the things that I've done or the things that have happened to me. And so really it's so much about how we value ourselves. It's about self-worth. And so as you have experienced shame versus pride, you experience it in yourself and then you experience it in others. Right? What's been your interaction, or how would you say that applies to your life?
Well, that is every week I have this opportunity to do interviews. I did 6 interviews on Monday, and I'll do probably 3 to 6 goal meetings this week. I get a chance to see into people's lives. And wow, it is it's tough out there. It really is. The people will open up and, start telling the truth and sharing things. You're just like wow, a lot of challenges out there. So with that, each person has a story, and the puffed up person compared to the contracted person shows up in different ways. And you can see it once you have awareness when you're in a meeting or whatever. Some people would say, you come into a meeting, okay, got it covered. They say, don't act like you're afraid, be bold. You're taught all these things out there to kind of be present and be this strong, a bit of a fooler person. And sometimes you got to do it just to practice it, because if you don't practice it, you can make yourself feel bad and not enter it. So the puffed up person or the proud person, that tends to be what people want to see. That tends to be what makes a difference. People tend to gravitate towards that.
So you have an interviewer who is looking for the prideful person, and you have an interviewee who's trying to present and promote and provide the prideful person. So both are under the illusion of we're looking for prideful, puffed up people.
Yeah. And I'm looking for the interview, not that, but I'm looking for the wholesome person. So they're presenting themselves because they watched YouTube and talked about how to do an interview. Well, I'd rather have an interview that is the real you, not the YouTube version of you. So all these things start coming together. When I do an interview, there's a lot of moving parts to the interview, and I'm going to ask several questions in there that are trigger questions because I want to see the reactivity to the question, which discloses some of these things. And sometimes just because a person is prideful or a person has high self-image, that doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem. But what I've noticed is that tendency is a little harder to work with over time than the lower self-image person. The humble person, once they have a friend, like with me being a mentor, and they believe in what I'm saying, especially with me coming out of that camp of low self-image and messed up lives and dysfunctional family messes, they're attracted to that because they see I made it out, then they see they can make it out. So I like that. I have tendencies towards that. Why? I like people like that. Why? Because they're a little bit like me. You see it, here it goes. This is always this, it's a tribal thing. That makes sense. So I'm sympathetic to it. And I'm a little bit rough on prideful people. Why? Because I've encountered a lot of them throughout my lifetime who tended to be really cute and awesome in the meeting, but not very wholesome after the meeting. A lot of big ideas and looking good in the meeting, but they kind of didn't show up with a list and followed up real well after the meeting. So with me, I'm like, kind of pissed me off. I'm like, you're a fooler. I don't like a fool. I had one guy one time when I was 19 years old tell me that you can't fool a fooler. And I'm just like, oh, wow. That guy eventually had all kinds of challenges come his way because he kept trying to fool. Right?
Can't fool a fooler.
I remember his name was Mike. I can see his face right now telling me the story. You can't fool a fooler, Rick. And like,
It's the PG version of that phrase right there. Okay.
yeah, so it's complex. It's kind of an alphabet of challenges there, and at the end of the day, it's not overly judgmental during the interview. It's just I need to know where you're at, where you're coming from. But at some point, the high pride person or the high self-image person, we got to shave off a little bit of that, and the person that's coming in with their head down and quiet, introverted, you slowly bring that out of them. We have to say, look, you got to get up and get going, and the other person's got to sit down and be quiet. There's a mentoring going in there, but I'm okay with either one. But I've found that speaks of it in the Bible how impactful pride is. I've found that people that are really prideful, it's a long way back for them.
Yeah, I mean, let's say we're beyond the interview now in relationship, right? So we might be married to a prideful person, or we might be in relationship at work in a team with a prideful person. And something that ends up happening is they tend to over-promise, right? And under-deliver because there's a puffing up. It's not their true self. And so what has been your, what does it look like at PMI to work with the prideful as, you have some execution machines around here, and pride comes with that sometimes.
Yeah.
What's that? What's the calibration? What's the tension that you enter into with a piling that's prideful?
Yeah, this is so good because we're now into this illusion. Most people would never notice this because they're just unaware. But what happens is once you start to notice all this, then you can do the work because you got to be very careful with the work. You start to know things and they may not know, but you're trying to build them, not break them. I mean, it's easy to break it, but you got to build them back out. We had an employee a while back, and I like to use these kind of life stories of certain people here. We had an employee that came to us, and his name was Chris, and he was very prideful. He's Enneagram 2. I mean, it's like right on the board. Okay, pride. And he felt like he had a lot of knowledge of what we did. Now, he had never really done it before, but he somehow chimed in like he knew, and he felt good about himself, and he was always kind of a little bit of a consultant. And I'm like, the guy that repaired the other day I was telling you about the Model A getting fixed, that guy was a consultant. Whatever he says, I will respect. This guy, Chris, is like, look, buddy, you have no background to speak this way. You're really screwing yourself here in presentation because you're trying to interject something without a foundation. And we're like, bullshitter alert here, bullshitter alert. Stop it. So he kind of.
Meanwhile, the two's like, but I have heart.
Absolutely.
And there's pride in that heart.
It is, and they want to look good, and they're an image type person, and they're wonderful. They really are. They're wonderful. Don't get me wrong. But here it is. There's a build out happening. Well, we kept trying to give him a little bit of humility. Sometimes that pride thing, you have to. They don't notice it, but if it start off like 5'10" we slowly make them 5'9", 5'8", 5'7", 5'6", because we shave an inch off of them every week, and they barely know we're doing it. But we're gonna give you some humility, and we're gonna see if you move towards humility and listen and learn, or you're gonna stay in the pride. We tended to stay in the pride. Good person, like the guy, but it just got ugly. We just got tired of it, and eventually we ran him off because we're just like, man, can you please shut up? You know what you're talking about. I mean, please stop. Well, he got a lot of pressure. The team was pressuring him. They were talking behind the scenes. It's like, God, he's just arrogant and loud and unevolved. Like Jesus says, forgive them. They know not what they do. He just didn't know. And we tried to mentor, and finally it's just too frustrating, so he left. And we were fine with that. Well, he goes somewhere else for a year or two and comes back. It's like, oh my God, the other place sucks. It's like, man, it's just no upward mobility, no message. It's work. The environment's bad. The guys are scamming. I'd like to come back to work, Rick. I'm like, dude, have you changed? He's like, yeah, I've learned a lot. I said, we'll need to have a meeting. I want to hear how you've changed. I want to hear what the difference is, because if you come back as who you were, I'm not into that, man. I like your great electrician part.
Don't come back as who you were.
Yes, but I love what you are as a technician. There's never been a question about that. But it's the other thing. Your high self-image is ugly.
Yeah, you're not talking about technical skills. You're saying don't come back as who you were personally, like character-wise, right?
Yeah, yeah. He didn't mean to do it. It's not a fault thing. It's a awareness thing, and it hurts to admit it. I think it really hurts when you're a 2. I think of all the numbers in there, us 6s we study it. The 2s, it's heartbreaking. For them, I think it's a heart issue. Immediately, if you challenge them, like you break their heart, and it's like, that's not my goal. My goal is adjustment. But with them, you got to do it nice and slowly, like a little splinter at a time. Where with the 6s, you can cut off a finger and keep going. So
this is where tools help, because you're almost setting up like a board game for the 2, and you're saying, hey, I'm going to bring challenge, but I'm in your corner. I'm doing this. You said it with Chris. You're like, hey, we were trying to fight for his highest good.
Yes.
It didn't work. He was a prideful person, so he had to go. But he came back, and now we're continuing to fight for his highest good.
He came back better, because I sat down with him. I'm like, dude, and this is real now. Don't come back with that we didn't like it. It was ugly, and I even alluded to him. It's like, it's not a fault thing. It's just it's so loud. It's ugly. No problem with the electrical part. He's great at that. He really is. He's like, well, I've learned a lot, and it's very hard for me, Rick, to ask for my job back. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And he did much better, and I'm very proud of him. The inner work is so hard. That's why nobody's doing it. It's this whole thing that we're doing is everybody talks about it, and they listen to a YouTube video or read a book, but they are not doing the work. I read that book, or I know about the Enneagram or 5 voices. The problem is, if you don't do the work, it doesn't matter what you read and what you saw. You got to do the work, and then what happens is there's some shame, and the pride will go down as you learn. You get humility, but the humility is beautiful.
Yeah, we have people. The shame and pride come from fear. Fear creates self-preservation. Self-preservation ends up essentially manifesting itself in 3 ways. I have something to prove, I have something to lose, or I have something to hide. And so I'm either puffing up because I have one of those, or I'm shrinking because I have one of those, right? And so how about people with shame? They show up small, they show up little, they show up sometimes mousy even. What's the tension there? What's been the build out as you've seen you've seen both men and women, admin and technicians go from shrunk into kind of this leader that's leading others, running teams. What's that look like?
Yeah, that's really cool. And I kind of see it in the faces of the people with the names. So the other day, I encountered this guy Curtis, and Curtis, super quiet, but super competent, kind of shy, never prideful. I just found him to be really awesome, and everything he did was just incredible. And I'm like, there's something going on here. I mean, how can this guy be this guy? I was just curious, and nothing ever came up, and he was kind of guarded about, I think, personal life and all that. But I'm just like, no, it's not a big deal. we got some stuff to do, and we're going to get all this stuff taken care of that he's working on. And so about 3 weekends ago, he shows up, and we're talking a little bit, and we kind of get to this thing about he's at the age of partial retirement. He's asking me when I'm going to retire, and I'm just like, you know, probably won't retire. I get too many noises in my head, so I need to keep busy. And he's like, yeah, I'll probably retire in a few years. And I'm just like, yeah, you know. And we talked a little bit back and forth, so we're going a little bit deeper. And he didn't want to go deeper. I could just tell he's not going to unpack it, because I could sense in him, after you've had 1,000 employees at relationships with this level, you can just kind of sense something in advance of it. So I'm like, he must have had something happen to him. And kind of low self-image, super humble. So, but I think the world of him. He's incredible. Well, we get past that, and it's like, yeah, you know, you're going to retire, I'm going to retire, and it's great. And, you know, been kind of tough along the way, and we leave, and he goes and does what he does. And we're having we had made a donation to Peninsula Catholic Church, and we had purchased a seafood boil as a donation. And so they were coming out to do the seafood boil, and we had 30 people. It was for 30 people. So it was crawfish and all that stuff, and there was a couple Cajun dudes putting it on, and they were awesome, very entertaining. So we're down there cooking food, and I said, Curtis, just come on down. Come on down. You know, look, take a break. Come on, break. You know, it's Saturday or Sunday. Come on down, eat with us. And we're kind of standing around. He's being real quiet, but he's standing just to my right. And we're eating crawfish, and I'm talking a little bit to some people, and we're talking about some awareness things and some deeper subjects. And he's not saying anything, but about 10 minutes later, he's like, hey, Rick, I never tell people this, I never talk about this, but I'm an orphan. I grew up in an orphanage. I'm like, I knew it. Damn it. I knew that shit was in there. There's too much to you, man. I mean, you're like a super deep dude that just doesn't expose any of it. He's like, yeah, me and 12 others, you know, and I got through that. It was really difficult. And, you know, and then a little while later, he asked one more question. But you see, he had to see me open up, talk about where I'm from, talk about how I got here. I was throwing out some deeper stuff. He didn't. It was like throwing out if you're fishing. I threw out the bobber, but at first he's like, no, I ain't taking the bobber. But eventually he wanted to have the deeper conversation where there was trust and connectivity, and he exposed some things to me that he'd almost never exposes, and I could tell that was in there. He grew up in an orphanage. Imagine what that's like, okay? And all those dark years. And what it is, he's a super deep person. He's probably 6-ish. I don't know for sure. I didn't ask him next. We didn't get that far into it, but wow. So here it is. We got the prideful person showing up as Chris. You know, we got this other person showing up as Curtis. But notice, people long to go deeper, but they won't go deeper with superficial people. They're going to talk about the football game. They're going to talk about the soccer club. They're going to talk about, you know, we saw the Kentucky Derby. But all that stuff is inch deep stuff. When you start going to this deeper level, people, it's interesting how they'll kind of go along with you, you know.
This is a really good recap to these laws, right? The first set of two, which is pride versus shame. And you're saying, hey, with people who might shrink or have shame or carry that, you have to be your true self. You had to lead with vulnerability. To some degree, you said, I'm setting out the bobber and just letting things be out there, but you're leading with your true self. You're not puffing up. You're not shrinking. Because if you puff up or shrink, he's not picking up any of that. He's not coming towards you.
The trust stays shallow, and they won't open up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the high pride person, they kind of had to get poked pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
But the person that had the self-image issues had to be pulled towards me and trust. They're two different approaches.
Mm-hmm.
Push-pull, and you got to be honest about that. You weren't there at the last safety meeting, but two people got the new version of what it's like to show up new at PMI.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's one girl that I absolutely adore. I interviewed her. She sold me in the interview in 10 minutes. Oh, my God, I just want you on our team. Well, she showed up now. She talks too damn much.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, she's talking all the time. She won't shut up. And I'm already sensing she's going to get gone. So in the safety meeting with 100 people, I said, you, I'm not going to spend 6 months playing around, toying with you, etc. You talk too much. You have no idea there's trouble coming your way. Your team members are slowly going, you need to go. but I'm going to present this to you. I'm about to tell you something that is going to hurt. Okay? But really the most hurtful person in the room is the ones that's not talking about that to your face. They're talking about it behind your back. Okay? I'm going to be upfront with you. And I just want you to know I'm for you because I interviewed you and your interview, she's just lovely. I mean, but she may not make it. I mean, that she may not be able to control the talking. Look, I didn't hire you as a consultant, honey. I hired you as an admin. Shut up and do the work. Okay? And then after that, learn how to use all the talking part, but don't over talk all the time because people, there's a lot of people here that are there's a lot of people here that are kind of introverted that are brought out and went forward. Well, when we have somebody come in that's this extroverted and really, it's tough sometimes because we're like, look, do the work, quit talking. Because some people want to talk and not do the work, right? But I told her to her face that. And I told her in front of the group, I said, but I just want you to know, I'm the best friend you have. And I said, I'd like you to come and see me Monday at 4 o'clock. Let's talk about this together. Make sense? So there it is. With her, it's a...
Was she responsive or resistant?
Well, no, I was looking for reactivity. I asked everybody, what'd she say? She could say, screw this place, I hate Rick. He should have never done that. Great. Bingo, you're gone. I'm not mentoring you. You called it. You're gonna basically pull away from me while I'm moving towards you. You're gone. Well, she didn't do that. She kind of wondered what was going on, and she's young. She doesn't know. There's no blame here, no judgment. But it's like I met with her and I said, how you doing? She's like, okay, I didn't really understand. I said, well, let's just go through what you don't understand. I said, because I say things and a lot of people assume what I meant, but they won't ask me what I meant. So if you take something out of context, it's not helping. So why don't you just ask me what I meant? And I told her, you sold me in 10 minutes on the interview. You're a wonderful young lady. She's come from a background of dysfunctional, you can just tell. She wants out of her neighborhood. Okay, she wants to get away from all that and kind of come over and like figure out where the good stuff's at, And because she's seen some ugly things, maybe some dysfunctional family things. And I told her, I've seen some of that too, but I made it out. And I've had to change who I hang around with and the messages of the people I hang around with. I said, if you want to, I'll show you how to get over here. But what I'd like you to do now is exercise this muscle of quietness because the talking muscle doesn't need any more work. Exercise the quietness muscle. So I'd like you to be quiet and focused for half of the day or half an hour on every hour. And then after that, be yourself. But learn how to basically quiet down and get focused because you're lacking in that. And she, okay. Because if not, she's going to get gone. Well, you see what I'm saying? And people are like, it sounds mean. It's like, no, it ain't mean. What's mean is she loses her job and she loses it again and again and again because she can't, we talk about this turning the knob. All of us have the same problem a different way, right? It's like with me going to Toys for Tots. It's going to be stressful. All the connectors and nurturers are going to show up. They're going to say, hey, Rick, how you doing? Can I talk for half an hour? I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have a heart attack.
Even as you're telling the story, I know where it's coming from, like where you're drawing from, where you're going, hey, I know what tendency and pattern is most undermining your influence. I know what you're doing that's getting in the way of your work. And you're already sold, you're already for her, but you're going, but we have to, in the one-on-one venue, be able to go, this is the tendency that's most undermining you. This is the thing that you're doing that's uncomfortable, that is taking you down, and you don't even know it.
No, and then she would think that the friendly thing to do would be not to be talking about it. I'm 64 now, and I'm going to be doing that much faster because it wasn't friendly to mess around for a year. The best thing to do is get a hold of it quickly, let them know I'm for them. I told like, look, I hired you. I must see something in you that I like, otherwise I wouldn't have hired you. Okay, and I've built a lot of people, and I have a lot of apostles. If you'll work with me, okay, I'll work with you. But if you come back with, you never should have said that, I don't like what you said, I think this place sucks, it's like, I'll fix that for you right now, honey. See that gate out there? Bye. Okay, because that's kind of how this works. It is like, you don't have to be in my life, and I don't have to be in yours. But if we're going to be in each other's lives, we need to go up the hill together.
This is a perfect segue. Our next two laws are passivity versus aggression, and it's got everything to do with will. So aggression says, I'm going to impose my will on you, right? Passivity says, I'm going to let you, or I'm going to be a bystander of you imposing your will on me.
And notice with the thing I just said, I was able to use both levers. Now I'm heavier on the aggression than I am on the passivity because I don't like messing around because I'm running this incline. The really friendly people are doing this, but what happens is when you do that, you get a lot of friends, but you don't teach people to fish. And you think you start to feel really good about yourself. It's like, hey, everybody likes me. I'm really a nice person. We went to lunch together. Well, what's their upward mobility, right? This is upward mobility, and what happens is it's a whole different conversation. So yeah, let's get into it.
You have rubbed off on me. The people will be like, Eddie, let's do this golf outing together, and I'll just be like, I'm good. You know what I mean? And I think in the past it was such an honor, and I was so excited about golf outings or certain things like that, and I'm just like, that's not for me, right? At least just the way I am, or because of you, I'm like, that's not the work. So I was like, I'm good. I appreciate you. Thank you. I'll do it in a very connected way.
Yes.
But I've just learned to say no.
There
right?
it is, Eddie. So you're aware and you're turning the knob by 10%. Nobody's supposed to turn it by 90. God didn't make us to change that much. Everybody just needs a little bit of an adjustment. So what you're doing there is you stop and you go, instead of being social and connective, it's like I can maybe do some work. Maybe instead of doing one golf outing every 2 months, I do one every 6.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then what I need to do is do more golf outings.
Oh, man.
I'm like, I don't do any golf outings. It's like, okay, I need to plan on doing one golf outing a year, then one every 6 months. So as you do less,
I'm making a note to invite
I'll
you
do
to
more.
a golf outing.
Okay, yes. I'm like, it already feels stressful, but yeah, okay, it's already like.
The answer is no.
Yeah. Well, the answer is once a year, and then I will prepare for it. But there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so anyway.
So what ends up happening is you're talking about, as we're talking about passivity and aggression, your personality, people are experiencing your personality. And what we're doing is we're overlaying data on top of people's experience of Rick Ruder. We're overlaying data on top of people's experience of Eddie Herrera or anybody else in our life where we're going, hey, these are the things that are happening. The law is we're either going to be puff up or shrink, shame, pride. Or you're either going to impose your will or let others impose their will on you. You can see how certain voices, personality types, enneagram types are going to either go one way or the other. Yeah. And so as we do that, what is at work there is will and willpower. It's something that we engage. If we weren't going to be... if we were going to do this right, and the laws are going to take us towards complete passivity or complete aggression, what is the trade-up in this process with people, right? You experience people that are aggressive and you're like, ooh, we need to turn the knob. You experience that are just way too passive and they need to turn the knob. Yeah. What's the calibration? What are we looking for when it comes to passivity versus aggression?
Well, what helped make me what I am is a father that was just insurmountable. So when people come to me overly puffed up and aggressive, I'm like, let's get at it, okay? And you can see the 6 counterphobic kicks in, like, It's like, no, don't be. Sometimes people think a lot of people that grew up with physical size want to they don't really say it, but they do kind of misuse it, we'll call it. Like, hey, since I'm 6'4" and weigh 250 and I lift weights, I got something to say here, man. I'm like a strong man. Yeah, great. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact you're a strong man. But if you're going to use that for some form of persuasion, you done came to the wrong place on that one, buddy. Because I'm from that neck of the woods. I spent most of my childhood with a prick like that. Okay? So it's like, don't even do it. And you can see I have a lot of energy for that. Like, don't do it. So I gotta be careful with that because I tend to overshoot that a little bit because I want to adjust that fairly quickly. And I have power to do it, right? Because they're here and I can move things around and take a couple inches off of them every month. Well, with that, the first thing I have to do is go, okay, your dad's not here and you're not a child anymore. Stop. You're building a person out. What is the best thing to do with that person? Because you see I have a bias there and I'm being honest about my bias.
You move past your own nurture, past your own narrative for your story, past your own upbringing. You move past your own dad to go, we're pushing past that big guy physical thing and we are building people out. Yeah. So in the background, your dad is playing a part and your dad was kind of physical and kind of
more than kind of
overpowering with his physical, ness, right?
Sure.
And as you're dealing with a person like that, you have to put that away and you have to say, I'm building this person out. I'm fighting for this person. I can't just go give this person my wrath because of this guy that I experienced in my life.
Yes, and I think all of us we have a lot of programming in our childhoods, and I think the programming goes into the puffed up or the shrunk. So you can see me with that. I gotta really pump the brakes on that. Like Rick, hang on. hang on, you have energy for that, and you have a tribal bias there. Stop it. You don't even know the person well. Let's just for a second think about being for them and what's best for them. And sometimes I'll even talk to them about it. Some guys that have really heavy false masculine, I call it, where they really overdo it. It's like, look, stop. Okay, look, I'm with you. If you want to play that card, we can play that card. Neither one of us are getting anywhere. But I'd like to just get past that for a second and talk about, you can still, I notice a lot of times with these really strong guys, they have trouble saying sorry and thank you because they somehow think they're like a girl or they're gay. I'm like, whoa, and that it just too much energy there. That makes sense. Thank you is not too soft. It's just a term, okay? All these type of things. So with that, I built out a kit. Okay, the low self-image person, it's a totally opposite kid. It's like, hey, let's get connected first. I'd like to lift you up and bring you out. Now, with them especially, I'll tell them, hey, you're seeing me today sitting here in my empire with all these buildings and this business and all that stuff. Do you know where I'm from? I'm from like trailer park people. Okay, I'm from like,
Rob Hill Road.
Rob Hill Road people,
Exactly. We'll always remember Rob Hill Road.
Right now. I remember when I crashed my truck and they stole all my shit. And it was not a big deal because with the other person that wrecked their truck, we stole all their shit. So it was okay. But just stuff like that.
I wanted to just maybe make sure that I don't lose this track. With Shaven versus Pride, you were like, hey, you have to know who you are, right? This is you. Because of your story, because of, knowing who your true self is and being your true self for the prideful and the shameful, but also learn to do that work yourself, right? Who are you? And then, but if you're saying for passivity and aggression, I didn't want to lose the track of that, is you are saying, hey, you have to know where that came from.
Yeah.
That aggression.
There's
for
a
you,
story
like
in
it came from somewhere.
It did.
And then for the passivity for other people, that came from somewhere as well. And there are moments where aggressive people are very passive. They go back, they really lean back and they do not engage certain moments. And you're going, oh, this aggressive person usually is very passive right now. And that's part of a story. And we have to wonder, hey, where does that come from? And so you're saying, hey, find out the origin of where passivity and aggression
and then build it out.
And then build it out.
Yeah, and then there it is. It's like you got to know their story. You got to understand because it's never it's just like with me. I spend a lot of time in that zone of being overly aggressive because of that treated the world like my father treated me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, I see how it is. Don't trust anybody. Just be aggressive, win, be successful, work harder than everyone else. Well, that only got me so far.
What's your dad's name?
John.
John, yeah. Right? So people are experiencing Rick, but they're also experiencing John.
Absolutely.
And what we want to do is acknowledge it, understand it, and then have people experience Rick, but also experience Jesus.
And part of it is that all comes together. Rick encountered John.
Mm-hmm.
Rick was damaged by John. And then Rick asked Jesus to intervene, and there's a bridge going on there. That makes sense. And Jesus walked me out of it. I mean, I owe everything. It's like at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, and it's time for me to retire or to check out. It's like, man, what I owe back is about everything, because otherwise I'd still be the Rick that's pissed off as his dad guy every day. But the Lord walked me out of that, and then as I got walked out of it, He says, "Feed my sheep." What about the others, Rick? Because I could have been selfish and just walked out of it on my own, but instead, now that I'm here at Power Mechanical, I have all these people around me. There it is. We're talking about the ones that there's people came from that background. There's people that came from the other background. So now I can find out where they're at and tell them a little bit about my story. It's like, this is what happened to me, and this is why you see me. I'm like the Wizard of Oz, that guy that's got all the levers that's behind the curtain. I mean, like, I'm all puffed up and big, and I'm this wizard. I'm the wizard. But when you see me, I'm just a little dude back there pulling levers and stuff. It's kind of how sickness is. Any counterphobic sickness is. It's all blown up, and I'm this little lever puller back there. I'm nothing, But
the Wizard of Oz is a 6 on the Enneagram.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, the Wizard of Oz follows the Enneagram. A lot of people don't realize how deep the story is.
Oh,
right
yes, with the different characters.
The head, the heart, the gut, the courage, the cowardly lion. Okay, but all these things. So here, but the point of it is, I noticed I'm smiling because there's just beautiful stories in there, but there's a deeper story. It's not just about the yellow brick road. Okay, there's a lot of moving parts in there that there's things to learn in there about the wizard and the cowardly lion and the Tin Man. I mean, all these things matter. Like, a lot of people call me the Tin Man. They're like, Rick, the Tin Man, do you have a heart?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and well, because I hide my heart because as a 6, I don't want people to hurt me. So if I'm going up this hill, the heart has to be guarded so I don't look like I have a heart, but I do have one, except for it's got 30 rows of barbed wire on it, a bunch of cannons, tanks, and alligator moats around it. So you ain't getting to me. That way I can stay in the game.
The
So,
invitation for all of those characters, and you said this word earlier, is wholeness, right? That there is actually wholeness available for each one of those characters. And what ends up happening for those characters is they've had a survival kit for getting to here. But usually, especially for very, very successful people, the kit changes from survival to thriving, and that it's another kit that you have to use for the next 20, 30 years. For you to get to continuing to turn the knob, it's a different kit.
so think about the Wizard of Oz for a second. As they enter, they have all these things that are holding them back. One needs a brain, one needs a heart, one needs courage. But when they leave at the end with the wizard, they're given that back. And then what does Dorothy say? There's no place like home. There's no place like home. And what we're talking about here is that once you make this journey of an example of the Rick and the John and the tornado, so to speak, relative to the Wizard of Oz, let's say there was a tornado in that childhood and I landed in a different place and I somehow thought the whole world was that place, but it wasn't. But I treated it like it was. And then eventually I went back home, and there's been no place like home because Jesus showed me that. And I think that's the story for everyone. It's like, if it's a heart issue, a head issue, a gut issue, whatever, or you're encountering wizards, you got to get back to home. And home is the Lord will bring you back home, because I would have never made it back home without the Lord. When the Lord scores effort levels on building people, I made him work awful hard. That's the best way to describe it. If he'll stick with me, he'll stick with anybody, because I know who I am. I know who I am on the outside, and I know who I am on the inside. And this thing on the inside it ain't pretty. It's pretty wicked in there.
There's a good book recommendation as what you're talking about. It pretty much explains some of the things we're talking about today. It's called Jesus, My Heart, Your Home is what it's called, and it's incredible. But it takes people through the process, regardless of their personality, of what it looks like to find home. There's no place like home, and to actually find your base again. Now, I wanted to
think about this real quick, though. If the childhood of each of us creates this, the Wizard of Oz is the journey, and you end up back home. So all of us, like when I encounter people, I encountered Chris, the prideful one. I encountered Curtis, the one that it was just like, there's got to be some magic in there. There's something going on, but he wouldn't tell me. Then all at once, he let his guard down and told me. What a blessing to hear that. But their stories created their life narrative, and they went down the yellow brick road, but they got to basically go back home. You see that? Because your formative years are affecting you, and not necessarily in a positive way. You had some pretty challenging things growing up also. I always liked it when people see us sitting here doing stuff like this. They need to understand where we're from. They see us in this finished form. We're all polished up. We're having like a movie set going on here, and it's 5:30 in the morning, and we're telling this story about leadership. It's like, you know where we're from? We're from the bottom, but we made it out, damn it. And everybody needs to realize that. They need to know that about us. They're going to see us like we're mentors and storytellers and guides and high level. Yeah, that's because we went down the yellow brick road and we're headed back home. We're coming back to this place where we're telling a story about, we don't want to win anymore. We want everybody else to win. I don't want to win anymore. I don't need another car. I don't need any more money. It's just a marker. It's just fun. I enjoy it. But at the end of the day, I don't want to do that and like win. I want these people to come with me. That makes sense. I want to have apostles. What does Jesus say? You got to build these apostles out.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make you better, would be the message we're telling people. I'm not trying to make you better because you're embarrassing me. I'm not trying to make you better because I want to make more money. I'm not trying to make you better because I want more fame or power. I'm trying to make you better for your sake, right? Because that is the work. There's a moment yesterday in the car. I wasn't planning on sharing this, but my son and I have a very playful relationship, right? It's just the way I am as a 4, and he is definitely an 8. Okay, maybe an 8 or a 1, 1-8, 8-1. So very different personalities,
Yes.
right? And he went from. I asked him a question about a camp that he's going to go to this summer, because apparently we go to camps during the summer. It's crazy, right? Right, not my life, but not how I grew up. But I'm telling him, I was like, hey, why don't you go as a counselor? And we went from being playful to him going, I'm only 14, Dad. And he sort of did this weird mocking thing to me of like, he was mocking me, you know what I mean, for a second. And I had a decaf cup of coffee in the car, and I'll tend to carry cups without lids. And I just sipped my coffee, and I turned off the radio. My girls were in the back. And I looked at him and I said, hey, listen, do not mistake my kindness and playfulness as weakness. I was like, it's really important that you understand that you and I were talking and we're being playful. And I was like, but you started mocking and being disrespectful. And I was like, and I want you to understand that you're entering into waters that make me change your life. And I was like, I'll play with you all day long. I was like, we can hang out. I was like, but you're being disrespectful. And I was like, and this is not up for discussion. And I encourage you, I was like, not to talk as I'm telling you this. And you could sense that he felt physical fear. I sense, because I have the Hulk, as a creative, I felt that, in there as well. But I knew I wasn't going to hit him. But I did feel the sense that he needed to understand that there is a consequence coming, and that this is his only warning shot, And what I would do is I would take away his privileges at this point in his life, right? And I kind of elaborated on that, but I got really quiet and I got really calm. And the longer I talked quietly and calm, the calmer I felt, and I could feel my feet. As I was driving, I could feel my feet. I was trying to ground myself the best I could, but there was just this moment where I was like realizing that I have to fight for his highest good, and I have to make sure that my work with him doesn't overshadow or how I respond in that moment doesn't overshadow the problem that we have, right? Sometimes in the problem of fixing problems, we end up creating more problems. And so it was just a moment of what we call passivity versus aggression, and a moment where I was like, I knew that all of those tendencies were there with aggression, and that I would want to yell, or I'd want to impose, or and I thought there's a bigger, stronger, more powerful way here than just being aggressive. And so it was but it was a moment.
Yeah, that was, as we're talking about awareness, illusions. Man, Eddie, imagine if our parents were like that. I don't know about you, mine weren't like that. They didn't have awareness like that. They just hit you or made you bleed or screamed at you. And you learned how to be careful. You didn't learn how to evolve. There's a difference, You learned how to be afraid and to learn how to deal with the fear. But instead, you were teaching him something, and there it is.
When you deal with aggression, you learn how to deal with it. You don't learn how to evolve. Flesh that out for me for a little bit.
Well, so as you're speaking there, and you say, I think you said first number 8, possibly 1. Well, let's just stay on the 8 for a second. And man, what a blessing for that child to have you as a father with the 5 voices and the awareness and the Enneagram that you have. You stopped for a second and you were being playful and fun. Well, the 8s are kind of like, more playful and fun you are, the more like weak you are. And they're like, yeah, I see, you're nice, I might dominate you, right? They have tendencies to do that, right? And you helped him out a little bit and said, life is full of bigger bears, young man. And it's like, oh, I'll be your friend, but don't underestimate the potential of where this could end up at. Just want to make sure you understand there's guardrails out there. And if you want to encounter a guardrail, we can get at that guardrail. But I think you might want to think that through before you get to the guardrail, right? Because at some point, my friendliness will get so ugly you can't imagine. I told my granddaughters when they came here, one of them's in college, and they've never actually met me at PMI. They met at home at the farm. We ride 4-wheelers, we ride horses, happy. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? I'm like, you can't imagine what you're about to see. You're about to see when we engage and we go up these hills. I'm going to show you something that's not 4-wheeling and riding horses. And I love you so much because I want to show you what it's like to go out in the world. Set your level at this, not this, level at this, and then keep going.
Here's how I've seen that. The challenge is not yelling. The challenge for you is you're going to stay focused for a long time, and you're going to stay at the work, right? I mean, I will experience you on your phone or in meetings where you guys are going through details or actually processing through the troubleshooting, and it's the challenge of being in the work for a long time. It's a different version of you, right, that they've never seen before. They haven't seen you in fifth and fourth gear. They've only seen you in third and second.
You were doing the same thing. You have enough awareness and enough depth. You changed your mode. You saw something happen. You encountered it. It's like, what's happening here? And you basically let them know, look, we want to stay clear of some stuff like that, because my friendly is not the same as my potential for ugly. Right?
So you and I grew up with the physicalness, the aggression. And so what we did was, and this is the quote that I wanted to draw up from you, was we learned how to maneuver around danger, physical danger, right? Emotional and physical abuse. We learned how to maneuver around it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we grew or got built out through that process, right? And so instead of evolving, we just maneuvered.
Oh, we got a lot of street smarts. And when I look back at the day, just for a second, this guy named John, believe me, his name is John. I'm not so sure his name is Dad. He might have done my mom and showed the hell up, but he wasn't fatherly. His name was John, and we'll say his name was Dad, but he wasn't fatherly. There's a difference right there. He was just a strong spirit, a tough guy. But with that, I have to give him some credit there. For everything he screwed up and overdid, I learned how to be what I am today. Okay?
That's the gain right there. You're saying, hey, I had a hard dad. I'm not a victim. He actually created a foundation for me of who I am today.
Yes, because I had to overthink everything. There's always danger there. It's one of those, if he goes to anger, trouble is going to be coming all over the place. What do? It's kind of like, I'm sick, but I got plenty of kindness in me, that peacemaker person. It's like, hey, how can we calm this down? How can we get things to settle down? Because with him, there wasn't no overthinking. It's like right from I'm angry into I'm doing something about it with physically. But there it is, the fear, and I'm a fear type, and you've learned some things also with that. You're a little bit different type than me, but that has made us more street smart, because we can encounter people. We start to notice fear, then we can adjust a little bit versus just trying to keep going at it. We're like, hey, let's slow the tempo down. Hey, I'll get in some meetings and I'll see a couple of guys are triggering in front of me, and just for a second, I could adjust that trigger down a little bit. That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a power quotient that I don't want to miss sharing, which is you have physical power, which is what people see right away. So if you are big, muscular, tall, or short, right? You have a power quotient physically. Then you have a positional power, which is you're the soup, you're the manager, the director, the vice president. You have positional power. And then you have personality power, which is not influence. It's personality. You're an 8. And so you're going to have more power than a 7 or than a 2, right?
Yes.
There's just a different forcefulness to your personality. Now, all 3 of those have to be leveraged, and you have to be consistent and intentional about your positional power, your physical power, and your personality power to actually gain influence. Now, you might have started at a 3 versus a 1 at certain ones. You might have a leg up in one of those 3 areas, but all 3 require intentionality and consistency.
Yeah, there it is. All of us have to turn the knob by 10%. So the 8, when it's starting to get out there, and because the 8's already like they want to dominate, and they're great leaders, but they can't misuse it because they're natural leaders. But they misuse their natural leadership because they get kind of punky or a little strong or a little aggressive or a little dominating. Man, if they can just pull that back a little bit, people want to follow that, because these 8s, you think they got it going on because they put it out there, right? They're not afraid. They're going to go. But they got to also be humble and kind and loving. You got to know when you're dealing with an 8, they've got your back. That makes sense. And
Yes.
when that start happens, it's like we talk about on the Enneagram. The Enneagram, the unevolves are at level 10, and you slowly work your way down to 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the center is the evolved person, where their personality is barely noticeable because they're turning the knobs every time, because they know when they enter somewhere, the old them entered too far. They entered it with too much 8ness or too much 1ness or too much 4ness. Now they enter with, I enter as a 6, but it's like, oh, okay. I have more than 6s sitting in the room. I'm going to need to try to balance this out a little bit.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like the last safety meeting, you would have been proud of me. At the end of the meeting, I apologized for hurting all the connectors and the nurturers. Okay, now I made a joke at first. In the meeting, because I'm starting to do that. And I tell you, I sense they really appreciated that.
How long was the meeting?
We weren't well. It's one of those. We're supposed to be 2 hours. They were like 2 hours and 30 minutes.
That's
but
great.
but right at the end, I'm like, for all of you nurturers and connectors out there, here's the knob.
Yeah.
I just want you to understand, I can't help but be me. I'm trying to be a better communicator and a more supportive person in your voices. I'm not good at it. I'm good at being a creative pioneer. I'm good at being a 6 and a counterphobic 6, but I'm not good at these other things. And if you would, please forgive me. I don't mean to offend you. I was curious, though. At Paramechanical, there's a bit of an extinction going on with connectors and nurturers, so they're kind of going extinct like dinosaurs. That's being created by me and a few others here, because once they start doing that, we move them to extinction. I said that was kind of a joke, but it's like, work with me, because every time you overdo the nurturing connector, I'm like, so we're both doing this, and we're missing each other. Because they're wanting to move to connector nurture, and I'm just like, hey, how about get a notepad out and let's write this out and number it. Like, Rick, there's no connecting in numbers. We're friends, right? There it is. I suck at that, man. I'm not good at it, but I told 200 people as a leader, if you'll work with me on my ability to rotate into a better leader for creatives and nurturers, okay, then if you'll work with me on that, I'll work with you on your thing. And all of us, as we move to the 10% adjustment, our relationships grow, our connectivity grows, and we end up doing better things together in our organization.
Yes. Rick, the Leader's Furnace, as we continue this process, thank you for walking us through. We covered 4 laws of the 6. We'll give plenty of airtime to the last one for next time, or the last 2. But thank you for sharing. I feel like today was very similar to the original conversation we had probably 3 years ago when it came to this, and just the reality of fighting for the highest good of people, understanding what it looks like to do the work yourself, of show up your true self, of not lean into shame or pride, but actually leaning into not shrinking or puffing up, but showing up your authentic size, your authentic self, right? And then with passivity and aggression, you nailed it when you were saying, hey, what does it look like to know where those tendencies and patterns come from? If I'm going to choose aggression, if I choose passivity, why do I choose that? Where does that come from? Awareness and knowing our story and doing the yellow brick road is the way. And so we look forward to coming back and finishing out the laws next time. Thank you.
Very good. You're welcome. Thanks, Eddie.